There's an easy way to connect your legacy Allen Bradley hardware to your Siemens automation system. Soft PLC has created a gateway, and we're going to show you step by step how you set up and configure to get connected. So here are a couple items to know before we get into it. Number one, we're connected to this gateway via an Ethernet cable. And number two, the browser that we're going to use to show you this demonstration is in Google Chrome. That's it. Now, let's get into it.
And I'm connected to it, so obviously automatically you see that it'll pull up the web interface or GUI, graphic user interface, as you want to call it, and it'll give you the options to be able to configure this gateway to communicate to what devices you had and what device you're going to. They got 4 tabs right here, very simple and straightforward. First majority will be your Ethernet path, what type of Ethernet path you're going to. You're going to set up what is the IP address of that gate, whether it's going to be in whatever subnet, whatever network you have. You can set up your IP address. Go ahead, set up your subnet mask. If you actually are in a situation that you actually are dealing with a router gateway, go ahead and let it know what the gateway address is. If not, you can just leave that with the default gateway. And then you select whatever your drive, G120 drive from Siemens, or S120 drive from Siemens, or DCM drive from Siemens. DCM is your DC 680 drives, your DC drives. So you just set up your IP address that's going to be given to your drive. Once you get that done and set up, at least you let the gateway know who is he and who is he's communicating with or to. We'll change over to your Allen Bradley settings, which will be your old legacy PLC. On the old legacy PLC, your Allen Bradley settings will be set up for communicating with what they call a logical rack. Your remote rack, your remote drives, HMI, they're all set up with what they call a logical rack. This basically is a rack that you set up, you let it know how much communication is going to go back and forth with it. They're going to be a half a rack, a full rack, to be able to know how many bits or bytes or words of information is going to come back. The regular communication setup is like, it looks just close like most of your RS-232 and any other type of Modbus TCP communication. You're going to need your baud rate of what is the communication speed going through that network trunk. This right here is a great addition to the Soft PLC. Majority of the time when you're dealing with this networks, end of the line, you need a resistor to be able to carry the load, let it know it's the end of the line. So if it is the end of the line, the software and the hardware allows you to yes or no to let it know, hey, I am at the end of the line. Go ahead and put that extra resistance on the line. You select yes, or if you're not, just select no. That way, at least it'll keep on passing through. But there is another option that the gateway allows you to not have to use that extra hardware relay. You set up your rack address. Majority on this time, your drive was set up already for whatever IO address that they were using. And actually, this gateway allows you to go to the max, which I think is 776 address back and forth. It's very useful. You can use it for anything that's set up that way. The key thing about the main communication here will be your drive model and your rack size. As we know, depending on your rack model and rack size, you are going to have the certain amount of data to be able to come back and forth. For your rack size, you got your half rack or your full rack or your quarter rack, which is already allowing you to send so many data of information back and forth to the device. And then depending on your drive that you are using, they actually went ahead and selected options for you, whether you're actually going with a legacy 1395 drive, that old DC drive from Allen Bradley that you were doing communications. You already changed the configuration here to whatever the set configuration they had, whether you actually are on a 1336 plus 2, which we've seen a lot of those still lately because they're still running good. It'll do the same thing, whether it's set up to full rack, which is 8 words, it'll give you the full option. And it, depending on what drive is using, it knows what the configuration of that drive is. So it'll allow you to make those configurations here and set them up as needed. Your PowerFlex is 70s, which they are actually on their way out. If they're not out, they got configuration set up right here. This module is actually a couple years old already. I know they're doing updates to it, so as they're doing updates, they're adding more configuration. So the key thing is that way you're able to set up your command going to the drive. So this is what your legacy PLC was set up to send. Your command bits, your speed reference. If they need it more, because we set up here for 4 words, you can actually keep on adding as needed to, and keep on moving along. And here on the right side of it is your status words. That'll be your information from your drive coming back. Majority of the time on the older drives, there was not a free configuration of them. So you can actually move and add whatever needed to because they were your all preset. Well, as you move along, it'll allow you to move what data information that drive will. So once you got your setup of what your old legacy PLC had that rack configured on the remote I/O network, you can move on to what they call the nameplate data. And depending on the drive that you're doing or your old Allen Bradley drive, this will allow you to either add whether there's a current option or an adder that they know or the gateway knows that it needs to add whether your current value needs to be added here coming from your drive. And we need to know your full load current of the drive or what the drive voltage is. It it'll ask you in this part if you need something else. We can always go back and try to see changes. I don't think I had too many changes to do to ask, but majority of the time the configuration is pretty straightforward. And at the end of the day, you go to the Siemens programming side and it'll let you know any other extra changes you may have to do on your Siemens drive to be able to match, which right here is obviously your command words programming is telling you that everything will come in as it's supposed to for telegrams for 10 words in, 10 words out. Your status words, no changes, but your general programming, which is your control word, is letting you know that there's 4 slight changes. It'll give you directly what parameters on the G120 drive that you have to be able to make those changes. As parameter 1050, you need to change it to 2098 bit 1. That is letting it know that your jog command needs to go to that control bit. And it's a great tool. At the end of the day, once you're done, you hit save and your configuration is saved to the gateway. It is a very straightforward tool, very straightforward gateway. I like it for a lot of products. We're actually doing a couple customers right now that we're actually moving along to help them get on the better side of communication and legacy products and be able to allow them to breathe easier knowing that they can have products that are updated, that are new, and that they can get instead of being able to deal with obsolete products. So this is basically all you have to do on the gateway. Once it's done, you're basically done with it.